We are live.
Welcome into another edition of Inside Carolina's On the Beat. We're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt, JohnnyT-Shirt.com. I'm Tommy Ashley. That's John Bauman, the man, the number one new beat writer for Inside Carolina. I guess you're not new anymore. It's been what, 3 months now? Four? No, you started in April,
Back
Jeremiah.
in
So,
April, yeah.
so seasoned veteran. That is Jeremiah Holloway. Waiting on Adam Smith to join us, but I'll get right into it. Jeremiah, it's been an interesting week thus far. We're going to split the show, talk football on the front end, basketball on the back end. But I thought it
Yeah.
was some interesting discussion with the players today. You guys had Drake and Cedric. It's kind of interesting to see the different dynamics between, say, a Corey Gaynor and a Cedric Gray. Cedric very low key, chilled out. Talked about his experience and all. Corey Gaynor's just like, I'm not doing it. I'm not talking about it now. There'll be plenty of time to do that. It's just wild the different dynamics between guys on teams. It's what makes college football cool, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'll start with Cedric Gray. I mean, first of all, Corey, anytime we get to talk to Corey, man, it's usually, two or three highlights, that just kind of come across. I know he was talking a lot about the sweat on his sweatshirt and things like that. It got interesting in there. It really did. I'll start with Cedric Gray. I think when you look at him, he's a player that really is going to start and finish that career at UNC. Traditional kind of 4 years in and out. Really had developed his game all under really that Mack Brown coaching staff and everything. And he really kind of comes into the season, or came into the season, from a place of, this is it. This is the last year. A lot's been made about the fact that, like, he could have left last season, but he decided to, end up staying and try to increase his draft stock and things like that. So I think he comes at it with a different perspective. Like, he really, like, knowing this is his last ride and everything else. But then you get a guy like Corey, played for a while at Miami, really had the 2 years at UNC. Now, don't get me wrong, he definitely, made a name for himself at UNC, and he's really, ingrained into what they're doing. But I think he's just obviously been around the block a lot, and just kind of like, he's been there. I mean, when he was talking about senior day, he was like, I mean, I can't avoid it because this is literally it. Like, I can't go back if I wanted to. So I think they come at it with both ends of the spectrum. One guy that's a traditional 4 year guy that started and finished at North Carolina, and the other one that. But I thought it was interesting how Corey was saying that UNC really revitalized his career, or kind of gave him that fresh start. Obviously, the teams that he's been on, one team that won 9 games. We'll see what this team does. The season's far from over for this team. We'll see exactly where they end up. And then, as far as just real quick to touch on Drake Maye and what's going on, Adam, as he joins. But real quick to just kind of touch on Drake and DJ Jones. Drake has said that he hasn't really made that decision as far as coming back or whatever, and he decided either way just to kind of reserve things for the seniors. And DJ Jones. I mean, it's possible for DJ Jones to go ahead and just go through the senior day stuff. He said he plans on returning. He's in grad school right now, but he can go through the senior day stuff and and still come back. Some of the guys at South Carolina, when I was over there last year, kind of had a similar thing. Like someone like a DeCarrion Joyner that's like a 6 year senior. I think he walked after his 4th year, but then the last 2 years just kind of whatever. So it's interesting how different guys choose to do it. But yes, I think Cedric and Corey, very interesting, kind of hearing from them and their perspectives on their kind of last ride in college.
This time of
Adam,
year, we get the most interesting graphic for the UNC football diehards, which is the who's going to walk on senior day graphic. It changes a lot too. If you remember last year, Ed Montelis, he said he was going to step away from football. He's been back and he's played an entire season. So this first graphic that will come out this week that says here's who is walking for senior day. It's sort of your first look at what the roster could look like next season. But there's a lot of movement, as Jeremiah was saying, with someone as high up on the roster as Drake Maye. But I want to know if Jake Harklerod is coming back for a 6th year. I want to get all the way into the details. So that's why I said it's an exciting time if you're really into roster management this time of year.
Well, I will say this, as a guy that's been out of college for a long time, this is 30-year reunion weekend coming up.
Whoa.
I would stay in college as long as possible. Unless you're going to make millions of dollars like a certain quarterback probably will, I'm staying in college. And I'm, as long as they will allow me to stay in college, I'd be there. So I'd be the 25-year-old Cormac Ryan guy that we'll talk about the basketball side, but I'd be that guy.
Tommy, you never left. Come on.
I know, really.
You're Mr. College. You're a Van Wilder type.
I walk around campus when I come to see you guys and Mack and all them on Monday, and I walk through campus like, man, this hadn't changed much. All the people, they're all getting younger. In reality, they're all staying the same age. But Adam, we were talking about the difference in Corey Gaynor's approach, Cedric Gray's approach. The elephant in the room that's not really an elephant in the room is Drake throwing out the you never know. But I think that's just him. He's deferring to everybody else rather than he knows if he walked on senior day, it'd be all about Drake this and Drake that. And he's doing what he's always done and deferred. And I think that's pretty cool when you've got a star quarterback that's able to do that.
And I think that, yes, I agree with you, Tommy. And I think that also with Drake is he's smart enough to know. I mean, he's no dummy. Even though he loves to goof off, but he's a smart dude. Obviously, he knows that if he happened to say today when we were talking to him, this is going to be my final home game. I am going to go to the NFL draft. Like that, it just all becomes, that the world we live in and the jobs that we have to do. It would just take over everything. Breaking. Drake Maye to the NFL, I have to say about nudge. I know Jeremiah gets tired of me nudging him. I nudge him all the time, but I almost nudged you today, Jeremiah, because Cedric Gray was talking about how, he wants to make the most of these last 3 games. And I was like, so Cedric not playing in the bowl game then? Because there's 4 games left. Now that could just be me, I don't know. He said 3. They got at least 4 left. Anyway, but yes, I thought Drake is gonna forever be beloved, just like Luke Maye is, just like Mark Maye is, and I just think it's interesting how the Maye mind works. About how just a couple words into his first answer, I think I counted it up right in the story today. I was just curious. I think we asked him 8 different questions about that topic. Could this be your final home game? What's your NFL future like? That type of thing. And just the way the Maye mind works, one of the first things he said was he was thinking about Luke Maye's senior night when he gave the senior speech in the Dean Dome, and he calls it the Dean Dome, So, yeah, I think he realizes the attention it would command. But I think Mack makes a good point, not to cape for Mack here, but I think he makes a good point that it would be nice to have a moment where he could say goodbye and people could say thank you. I'm sure there'll be something like that at some point, maybe after his career is over. Sam Howell was back, a couple weeks ago, got the Patterson medal. But I tend to agree with Mack that it would be nice to be like, just to have that. But you certainly see where Drake's coming from, and he's the ultimate team guy.
Sam's been around a lot too. I mean, Sam, the way their schedules worked out, he's been at multiple games, was at App last year and all that. And you're right about the Patterson thing. I think it is interesting, though, is that some guys want the glory and want the recognition.
Yeah.
And a large majority of these guys that North Carolina fans consider, greats and heroes, they don't. They just want to sit in the background and let what they've done on the field sort of speak for themselves. Somebody in the chat said, if Carolina goes over for the next 3, maybe Drake will come back. Yeah. Just like Mack said Monday. Go back and listen to Mack. Mack said, I'm telling my son to go. And I said this last year in these podcasts that if the quarterback had my last name last year, and all these big programs were offering millions of dollars. And folks know what I think about North Carolina and what my family's got invested. We'd have been rolling into crimson and cream down there in Tuscaloosa. Jeremiah, what'd you take away from Monday's press conference with the coaches? Let's start with Chizik. Everybody loves Gene Chizik. I didn't hear a lot of answers there other than the normal coach speak. But let's get real. Duke's going to run the football, and they're going to try to run the football, and they're going to try to run the football more. And then they're going to throw it with this kid who I think's better than people are thinking because I haven't seen him. What'd you take away from those pressers, if anything, Jeremiah?
I think for that right there, it's really just a matter of how do you kind of get back into, and there were some questions about it, just kind of getting back into the flow of ACC play. I think with them playing Campbell, playing an FCS opponent, the main thing that I took away from the Campbell game specifically was, how the depth looked, when they were able to get in. You pretty much expect for the offense and defense to do what they did, and they eventually got there and did it. So I think kind of talking to them on Monday is kind of like recalibrating toward, getting back to, ACC play and things like that. I think as they talk about Duke, they know what the game plan is going to be. Like, it's very much going to be run the football and just attack UNC that way. The last few times that UNC's played ACC competition, it hasn't gone well against the run. Campbell, that's a game right there where it's like, okay, can you execute? Can you be in the right spots? I know Gene Chizik was talking about wanting to get better at, tempo and kind of getting lined up and all that and defending against, offenses in that way. So, it's interesting. Like, Campbell's a team where you would, pretty much expect to kind of get those stops. But what can you kind of translate from that Campbell game into a team like Duke that, has had success, running the ball, and at the very least has, formed an identity, trying to kind of run the football, especially with the way that the quarterback situation has been. So, I mean, it's a team. And then also, well, if I can, kind of talk about Chip as well, just real quick, I mean, he understands the caliber of that Duke defense that's over there too. I thought it was interesting. The Duke defense, statistically, I'm just saying statistically, they're actually better against the pass than they are the run. They're like third against the pass and like 7, 8 against the run, something like that. But I mean, obviously, they have guys up front for sure. So, it's definitely going to be a trench battle. And it sounds like they know that. But I think what they're really going to have to do, coaching staff and players wise, is just you're getting back into ACC play. These are the types of teams that you're going to have to be able to stop, in order to find some sort of way to get on this 3-game win streak and, maybe backdoor your way into a ACC championship appearance.
John Bauman, get in here with your, your hot takes, your great stats, and your great questions. What'd you think about this week's press conferences? I mean, you pay attention, you watch. Some days there's a lot said, some days there's not a lot said, some days there's plenty said that's not said, if you know what I mean. But, John, what'd you think?
I think there's a lot of anticipation. There's not much else you can say. Everyone knows that this upcoming 3-game stretch against Duke, Clemson, and NC State is really going to write the story of the season. These 3 teams that UNC is about to play are the 3 best defenses that they've played all season long. They are, we've talked about already tonight, quarterback deficiencies, but they're all 3, good, solid running teams. So they're going to present a lot of challenges for UNC throughout the season. So it's kind of, I feel like, a little bit of all the talking that can be done has been done at this point. It's time to just sort of see what this team has on the field. There are going to be 3 very challenging tests to close out the season. And I think I kind of got the sense of that in the press conference. Mack Brown has talked about for a long time now this tough close to the season. But that close is even tougher now because UNC has 2 bad losses next to its name on the schedule. So you can't afford, really, in terms of positive momentum for the program and for the team this season, you really can't afford to have a poor performance And I think that starts this weekend at Duke. It kind of sets the tone for this last 3-game stretch of the season.
I find it interesting, the different approaches or the different takes on the season. Jack in the chat, and I'm going to disagree with the first part that you say, Jack. We crucify our team more than any other fan base does its own team. That's no. In reality, 2 plays away from being 9-0. Absolutely, you can frame it that way, but have you been to other message boards? Have you been to Ohio State's message boards when they're dominant most of the time? Have you been to others? North Carolina fans are no different than any others. Maybe the expectations are a little higher than they should be sometime, but no, fan bases are all. And Adam, it's not really Carolina related, but what do we think about MJ Morris deciding to redshirt down in Raleigh?
Dude.
I mean, it's one thing to do it when you're like 5th on the depth chart and you're fair catching kicks. It's another to do it when you are the starting quarterback.
What the hell's going on over there? Like, I mean, damn. Like, I'm cussing over here. It's like that's at least twice that we've been doing UNC football interview type stuff on a Monday or Tuesday. I'm thinking back to a couple weeks ago. I remember we were wrapping up, pretty sure it was Monday because I know Doran talks on Mondays. And our friend, the esteemed Aaron Beard of the Associated Press, told us, we were like packing up, like they're benching Brennan Armstrong and going to MJ Morris. Doran just announced it. And I was like, dang. Well, okay, so you got him out of the transfer portal, and now you're going to bench him, and you told MJ Morris you're going to redshirt him, and now you're pulling the red shirt off. Like, I just remember being like, whoo, and obviously that was a move that worked out pretty well for NC State. I mean, I personally think Brennan Armstrong's a good player. I don't know what happened to the guy because he had a terrible year last year at UVA, and he had a bad start this year at State. But it did work out. And then, today we were wrapping up the players stuff, and it's like intern Evan messaged me. He's like, there's some rumors that MJ Morris is going to redshirt, and he might say bye. And sure enough, about 10, 15 minutes later, it was, everywhere. Intern Evan with his ear to the ground over in Raleighwood. But hey, I don't know. I mean, we're not here to talk about NC State. The last thing I would say is, how do you? I guess there's no way you can say I'm redshirting. I'm not going to play the final 3 games of the season and stay. Right? You can't. You cannot do that. I know I think the word was, he's not necessarily transferring. I don't see how in the world you can say I'm not playing with you guys and then be like, yep, I'm back. You can't do that, right?
I'm gonna sit over here and watch. I'm gonna watch you guys in the last. That's the thing, and the reason I brought that up is everybody thinks, you're in the bubble of being a North Carolina fan or somebody that follows North Carolina religiously and think it only happens at Carolina, or it only happens, or Carolina's more critical or whatever. It's nuts across the college landscape.
Yeah.
And but for your starting quarterback and your starting running back, even though Jordan Houston, I know, had lost some things to decide the red shirt. Just absolutely nuts.
A little bit different than George Pettaway and Elijah Green redshirting when they're 3rd, 4th or 4th and 5th on the depth chart, wherever they were. Just slightly different.
Yeah, it is. Everybody talks about some NC State stuff. That's some NC State stuff over there. But I've been saying for 2 or 3 weeks now that it's not going to matter the Saturday after Thanksgiving because NC State's going to run the Wildcat with Brennan Armstrong all night. And now that's pretty much guaranteed to happen.
He's had success against UNC. He knows how to do it the last 2 years.
Absolutely. Jeremiah, anything else from this week on the football side that you sort of took away? I asked Mack about the chippiness factor on Monday. These games, especially Duke, it's always chippy. And Mack went to his – and I will give him this aspect of his complaint about the schedule. It's not that these teams are the greatest teams in the world, back to back to back. But I'll give him the fact that you're playing against rivals that you hate and they don't like you, and it's going to be chippy and that emotion every week. I think that's a valid argument there. But anything you took away that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, I think it was kind of interesting. being back at South Carolina, back in January, I didn't even realize it was January. I literally had to look it up when I was doing my story today. I forgot when they had announced the schedule, but I do remember kind of seeing on UNC Twitter or maybe some group chats, Mack Brown complains about the schedule and stuff. And so I will be honest and transparent. Like, I did not agree with the complaints. I looked at it. I'm like, you don't leave the state. You only leave the state, what, 3 times? And you play at home how many ever times. I will say that the last stretch is certainly rough, right? I mean, you look at the first 9 games, it's like, all right, like you pop a Miami in there. Maybe we thought Minnesota would be a little bit better, but they're, that even there, it's pretty spaced out. And then everybody else is really teams that you're better than. But some teams play you tough, obviously, right? Like a Georgia Tech. And obviously they ended up getting that win. But what I will say is just kind of, going down that last stretch, 2 of those games are going to be in like very hostile environments. So I think a win against Duke would actually go a long way for UNC just in their preparation of, okay, you beat a team that plays physical, that has a really good defense. Can you take that and go into, obviously Death Valley, which is a very difficult place to play. They obviously just beat a top team down there. But I think the Duke game is like, a good warm up for a North Carolina team that is in the college football rankings now. They are the 24th team in the CFP. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, I mean, they're not going to get but so much higher than that. But I mean, I don't know. I will say like up top, like that landscape is pretty wide open. I don't think there's anybody that's like unbeatable, in that top 5. Well, not among the teams that follow the rules. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. But it's going to be interesting final 3 games. I'll say that.
That was a low-key troll there. I'm going to be interested to see how Michigan does without Connor Mustang on the sidelines, Connor Stallions on the sidelines shouting out the plays. Anyway, John, let's get into some rapid fire.
Yeah, we've got some great questions in the chat. I want to give a shout out to Sean Crowley and Slagle in the chat as well. Our loyal listeners, they're there every show. I'm going to hit a few of these questions. If you have a question as well, be sure to post it in the chat pod. This one's for Tommy to start with from Garrett Chapman. Keys to keeping the bell Saturday. Any jump out for you, Tommy?
Don't turn it over and tackle. I mean, I think that's what it is. You cannot have a bunch of missed tackles. I think North Carolina was in the single digits when they were 6-0, and then they got up in the double digits in those 2 games they lost, and I have no idea what they did against Campbell. But you got to be clean with the ball. I'm not a big jinx person, but they've been pretty clean thus far this year, and you got to stay that way, and you also got to tackle in space. Duke's going to run plays, and if folks have watched Jason Staples' film breakdowns and all, Duke's going to run plays to make guys make plays in space, and I think North Carolina's secondary is going to have to get it done, and those defensive tackles are going to have to do something against Duke. So those are my 2 keys. Don't give it away and tackle the ball.
This one is from Randy M. It's for Adam. He asked, can we get Amarian to 1,500 yards and 20 touchdowns by season end? Sounds like Randy might have a parlay or something that he needs to hit. But Adam, do you think those stats are relevant for Amarian, or do you have any other stats on UNC's running back?
Is that Randy Marion, the car king down in the Lake Norman area? That's I know some people down in the Mooresville area. That's
high dollar friends there now.
Yeah. Randy Marion has like an auto empire down there. Well, Randy, yes, UNC can get Omarion Hampton to 1,500 yards because that's what he's on pace for. We've crunched the numbers the other day, and if he continues at his current pace, he would be, I think it's 1,530 or 1,539. He would end the season, and that's with 4 more games. I did not include, an ACC championship game in there because I think that's unlikely. But 4 more games at the pace he's going, he would be over 1,500. And by the way, here's a throwback for you, TA. That would be the 2nd best rushing season in UNC football history if he's able to do that, second only to Don McCauley in 1970. So how many years has it been since 70? 53? So it's like
53.
this be the best rushing season. It's kind of crazy to think when you have Drake Maye and Tez Walker, and Nate McCullum and Bryson Nesbitt. I know Nate hasn't played well lately, but that you could still end up with, the second greatest rushing season in UNC football history. So I'm not sure about the touchdowns. I should have figured that up, but I was looking at just now the last 4 games for Omarion Hampton: 87 carries, 606 yards, 6.9 per carry, and 87 carries the last 4 games. He had 88 all of last season. So this guy has done a season's worth of work in the last 4 games for what he compared to what he did last year. I think the body maintenance is going to be key here. Although he is, they call him Saquon Barkley. I mean, he is built like a brick something house. I mean, he is jacked, as we know. But yes, he can get to 1,500 if he stays at the pace he's on.
And one could argue very strenuously that he should have significantly more carries than that in the last 4 games, especially after that Virginia game. I mean,
19 carries the Virginia game. Yeah.
And he is what how many has he got on the season? I had it up here. He's got 175 carries on the season in 9 games. So that's less than 20 a game. He certainly has the body and the physicality to handle more than that. But anyway, I digress again. Omarion, it is crazy, to your point, Adam. It could potentially be the best running back season in 53 years, and you have those guys you mentioned. Speaks a lot to the offensive coordinator, I think. Go ahead,
they didn't have the spread offense in 1970. No offense to 1970. I wonder, you always wonder where you should cut off modern history. You know what I mean? I mean, I know 1970 is not ancient times. Some of us were born in the 70s. A little bit later on in the decade, but I mean, they didn't, back then, I mean, you're just you're running the hell out of the ball. So yeah,
just for reference sake, I just looked it up. Don McCauley had 324 carries that year.
Right.
For 1720, 5.3 yards a carry. Ike Oglesby, 562. So, you talking about clouds of dust, they did it. Paul Miller, Carolina's quarterback, threw for only 728 yards that season. A little bit different time, but still a heck of a record.
Drake or Sam Howell, that's 2 games.
I'm going to hit on this question from Jack real quick, and then after this we'll get one more question before the ad break. Jack asks, who is the QB for Duke? So we are looking at Grayson Loftus starting this weekend. He is from Greer, South Carolina, class of 2023, so a very young guy. For reference as well, he was ranked 880th in the 247 Sports Composite, so that gives you a sense of kind of where he sits, ranked higher than UNC's commit for the class of 2024. And he's played meaningful snaps in 1 game so far this season against Wake last Thursday. He was 7 of 19 for 86 yards, 36.8% completion percentage, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So you can look at that 2 ways. Hasn't had a lot of success on the field, but Tommy, as you said too, not a lot of tape on him either. I want to give this last question to Jeremiah. This is from Slagle. Keys for Carolina's offense against Duke's physical defense.
Yeah, shout out to Slagle as usual, common supporter of the podcast. I'm always a proponent of feeding the beast. In this case, it's Omarion Hampton, and British Brooks has also kind of shown kind of some more comfortability back there as well. But if Duke does start to find success against that running attack, or defending the running attack, I think UNC should continue to keep looking to Bryson Nesbitt. I think he's somebody that provides a solid mismatch. And like I said earlier, Duke is actually a little bit better against the pass than they are against the run. So it sounds like maybe you're feeding into Duke's strengths a little bit, as talented as defense is. I mean, they're well rounded, but I think Bryson Nesbitt gives you kind of an extra dynamic, being that tight end that can still, move and still get open and things like that. Really, he's been really good the last several weeks, especially with yards after the catch. I think he's been able to just kind of get it and go in stride. So, obviously Tez Walker being back is huge for them. Nate McCullum, they're still monitoring him in practice and things like that. They managed to get the ball to different guys throughout the game last week. We'll see if they even try to use some of those freshman guys as well, just to kind of give themselves more options. But I think Bryson Nesbitt actually could play a big factor in this game. I think he's somebody that UNC should probably look to get involved against Duke.
We're going to take a second here to talk about our sponsor of this show and every single show on the Inside Carolina Podcast Network. That is Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Temperature is going to be dipping into the 50s. Not that I'm a weatherman, but that's what I've heard this weekend against Duke. So if you need a jacket, something to keep you warm during the 8 o'clock kick this weekend, you can stop by Johnny T-Shirt on Franklin Street, or you can head on over to their website, look at all the selection there, and Inside Carolina Premium subscribers get a 10% discount when checking out. So be sure to leverage that as well. We appreciate Johnny T-Shirt for supporting our podcast. In turn, we ask that you help them out and visit their store and send your business their way. We're going to take a break here, 9:32 Eastern. And after the break, we're going to come back and talk about some UNC basketball.
All right, folks, we are back. It is On the Beat Live. I was trying to look up Chapel Hill weather since John was turning into a weatherman. Saturday, mostly cloudy, 11% chance of rain, 60 in the day, 38. Come see us in the Bowls Light. Jeremiah will be down there. Bowls Light 5 to 7 in the dark. So if you have a light, if you have some portable generator lights, bring them out. We might need them, or we'll be doing the show under the IC tent with candles. It's basketball talk, folks. Get some questions in the chat for the basketball team. Adam, I'll come to you first since you're the elder statesman here. I thought it was an interesting game that North Carolina played last night. They obviously winning the game is number one, and they ultimately did that. But it was interesting to see the different lineups and Hubert Davis really getting a ton of players in. I said it to Dewey on the day after. It felt like a Roy Williams, or on the post game, it felt like a Roy Williams type early season game where I'm going to play a bunch of different combinations and see what it looks like. I thought that was good to see.
Yeah, and I think I was reading something today about sort of the total minutes. Like, I think Cormac Ryan was the only guy. I need to call up the box score. I think Cormac Ryan was the only guy who went over 30 minutes last night, and it was a comparison to the season opener last year against UNCW, and I think 4 or 5 guys were over 32 minutes last year in the season opener against UNCW. Number 1 UNC last year. A little bit of a slog against UNCW that night, I remember. But yeah, I think, not to pat myself on the back, but I believe what I wrote last night was that, it wasn't like the most show-stopping debut. I was thinking about the curtain going up for some reason, since this was like a new cast of characters. I don't know why in the heck that was on my mind, but that's what was rattling around my bald head. So, I didn't think it was the most show-stopping thing, but I thought it was a starting point that you can sort of take somewhere. I thought offensively, I thought there was a lot to like. Now, defensively, I think there's some things you got to keep working on. I don't think you want Armando Bacot switching all the time and being out there one-on-one with some 6'3" guard who's dancing on him. But, I'm not the coach. But, it was a fast start. They made their first 5 threes, bang, bang, bang. I mean, they didn't miss 5 for 5. I got the yellow pad over here. It was 13 points in the first 3 minutes. It was they win the jump ball. Paxton Wojcik post lob, Armando Bacot dunk. It's pretty nice first possession. But yeah, and I noticed I think someone said who could be the X factor on this team. Hey, Jeremiah's going to slap me the next time I say it. I'm a Jalen Withers fan. I also think Harrison Ingram, which I know is not, the most wild declaration. I think Harrison Ingram and Jalen Withers are X factor type guys because I just think they can do so many different things. Carolina's got some pieces. I mean, a lot of people have been asking me, and I've said I don't know if they can, make the Final Four or the Sweet 16 or whatever. But I think this is going to be a good team. I think it's going to be interesting seeing how this thing develops. And my own personal take, I think Armando Bacot and RJ Davis feel refreshed and needed sort of just a fresh start. Yeah, Armando has said it. It's a fresh start, and that's what they needed. They needed to get the air cleared. It was just too heavy last season. So I think there was a lot to like. I think there's a lot of work to do, but I think there's a lot to like.
I mean, I agree with everything you said there. And Jeremiah, I was reading your article earlier about the depth. I think if there's one thing, Adam mentioned the defense, and I think that's where the lack of athleticism comes in a little bit on the defensive end, especially because I think on offense you can sort of scheme and run plays even if you're not the most athletic and have good offense, and Carolina's going to do that, I think.
And they got the ball movers too, Tommy.
It doesn't stick.
Yeah.
There were no holes in the Smith Center floor after the first game, which, look, quite frankly, the last 3 years, they have pounded the rock into the ground more than any team I can remember playing in Carolina Blue for a long, long time. That's not going to be the case. To your point, they move it, they swing it. People are talking about Brady Manick, Cormac Ryan type player, but Jeremiah, that's the one issue I saw is maybe a little bit of lack of athleticism on the defensive end because Radford had some guys. I mean, Brian Antoine could play. I saw him play in high school, and I was glad he didn't go to Duke and ended up going to Villanova. And so you've got a guy like that. But what did you see overall from this team, be it a depth factor or skill factor, that you really liked watching in this first game?
First of all, I just want to say, man, I'm excited we talk about basketball. Obviously, that's nothing. That's not anything about the
Jeremiah's
football team.
a basketball firster guy. There you go.
For sure, yeah, for sure. That has nothing to do with the football team, but I think it's good to just kind of get something else to talk about, man. I think this is a team that, and I said it a little bit when we kind of had the kind of on the beat after the media day. But I'm going to bring it up again because it was our first time really getting to see them in game action. It's a team that this is probably the first team in the Hubert Davis era that's like exactly like how he wants it. It's like exactly how he wants it to look. I know RJ and Bacot obviously played under Roy Williams, but I mean, outside of that, I mean, these are all guys that he recruited and all guys that he brought in from the transfer portal. And so I think from an offensive standpoint, and really defense too, but I think I was looking at just the different lineup combinations that they wanted to put out there. I think it's significant and not necessarily unexpected. They always had RJ Davis or Elliot Cadeau on the court at the same time. So those are really going to be, the two main guys. I think me and Adam, we were kind of playing around with different ideas. Grant Hughes had us doing something on the different lineups. So just to kind of play around with it, I did something. Hey, what if Harrison Ingram takes on the point forward and he plays point guard some lineups? Maybe he could. I don't know. It's really going to depend. I know it's one game and we don't want to overreact. But one thing that I thought was interesting, and Adam bringing up Jalen Withers made me think about it. It's going to be a 4-out offense, probably no matter like who's going to be in there, because Zayden High was in at the 4 when I was kind of taking down the lineups. Zayden High played the 4 pretty much every time because he either shared the court with Bacot or he shared the court with Jalen Washington. And there were a lot of times where Zayden High was out there on the perimeter, and he's not necessarily based on the evidence we have, a guy that is going to be like a big shooter for them. But when Jalen Withers was in there, Jalen Withers obviously he was the stretch four. He didn't shoot any threes, but he kind of spaced the floor out and allowed room for Bacot and Washington to kind of do what they were doing, and both of them had obviously really efficient games. So I think this is a team that kind of to Adam's point, I mean, there's just a lot more spacing. I think the way that Elliot Cadeau can move the ball around, like I really do think Cadeau is going to be a big contributor for them. I know he's obviously a young guy, and he's going to make his share of mistakes, but just the way that he can move the ball and his willingness to do so, I think that's actually going to go a long way once he starts to put everything together. So we'll see like how good and how far the team can really go. I do think it's a much better team. Not even the talent necessarily. There's plenty of talent, but it's not just the talent. It's just like the way the pieces fit together. I think it was a well constructed roster, and so we'll see, exactly where the team goes. But I mean, so far it seems like there's a high level of connectivity there.
I like what Greg said as well. This observation about Cormac Ryan. Greg writes, Ryan seems to be like, why is nobody talking? Guess I'll do it. I picked up on a few things with Ryan, and honestly with a lot of the new players. It seems like they had a lot of good body language, good energy in the first game of the season. In one of the preseason press conferences, Armando Bacot relayed the story of Brady Manick playing that role of kind of getting the team fired up, kicking a few chairs. I think that is a needed kind of element of the team chemistry. Maybe that's something that RJ Davis and Armando Bacot, the two team leaders, maybe aren't always supplying in terms of the team chemistry soup. So if Cormac Ryan is able to bring that to the table a little bit, be that ingredient, be that senior leader on the team, I think that's much needed for UNC. I mean, even in a game like last night, right, where it was close at times in the second half, there was no panic at all from UNC. There was nobody rushing to take a quick three or kind of trying to do it all themselves. So that was one early thing I picked up on, kind of building off what Greg said in the chat. Good leadership sort of in the first glance from Cormac Ryan, and just a lot of good energy from some of the newcomers to the team.
Yeah, and one thing about it, and people have mentioned it in the chat, and Adam, you can comment on this. Carolina had 18 assists last night. Only 4 times last year did they have more than 18 assists all year, and I think that's a tell there. You got to share the basketball to have a successful season, and North Carolina had done that over the years, and just the last couple of years again, the ball's stuck and they didn't share it as much. So, Adam, that is one thing. And to your point, they've got ball movers. I'll go ahead and say it. I like Paxson Wojcik in the starting lineup.
I do too.
I think it gives you options off the bench that you've got to have. You don't want to come out and shoot all your bullets in the first 4 minutes and don't have anything to go to. But just sharing the basketball was nice. You referenced the first play of the game, but it was pretty much a consistent thing throughout. And I think Radford had 5 assists.
They did. Yeah.
And as long as you're making shots like Radford was doing early, you can do that. But can you make them for 40 minutes? I think it's much easier when you're sharing it to make those baskets. But, Adam, I really like that portion that I saw from North Carolina.
Yeah, and, it's interesting. Paxson has said a couple times this preseason that Hubert has got on them for overpassing. You know how it is when you play pickup and you're like, you want to make sure people know you're unselfish, and like you might pass up a couple open shots and somebody's like, dude, take that. Like there was one moment last night where I think Wojcik passed up, could have been like a little 1 or 2 dribble pull up and tried to get it into Armando, and he just should have shot it. But yeah, like, I was thinking, Tommy, as you were talking about the 18 assists, and yeah, it would have been the 5th most in a game last year, something like that. Those stats from last year absolutely are a symptom of the way the offense was stagnant. But also, I was thinking about, you got to make the shots to get an assist. They just didn't make the shots. They just did not make the shots last year. And this is going to be mean, but I was thinking about it last night, and I don't like to be mean to this guy because I really like this guy. But Pete Nance, super nice guy. My gosh, enjoyed covering it, enjoyed talking to him. He didn't duck questions. But, I was thinking about him as I was driving back to Mebane last night in the wee hours, and I was like, man, I think Pete Nance just kind of got in the way sometimes last year. And he didn't mean to get in the way. It just didn't work with like the 2 6'10", 6'11" bigs. And Pete Nance, I think, wanted to be more of a face-up stretch four to help his game get to the next level. But I just think, I don't know why get in the way kept coming to mind. I just felt like he kind of got in the way. Yeah, I think the construction of this team, I saw somebody talk about Withers being a role player in the chat. Well, there's a lot of role players, and that's good. I mean, everyone cannot score 20 points a game.
Right.
And these guys know that. Cormac Ryan's played for 5 years. Paxton Wojcik's played for 5 years. They know that. They know that sometimes you're going to score 8 points and get 4 rebounds and 3 assists. It just cannot be a 25-point night every night. And, I think that the veteran aspect of these guys, as we've talked about, 5 captains, 5 guys who have been captains, the intelligence. I mean, Harrison Ingram's a damn genius. I mean, you feel stupid talking to him sometimes. He's a smart dude, riding his bike all around Stanford's campus. I think, like Jeremiah was saying, I think that this thing, I know people can be down on Hubert Davis, but I think this thing has been constructed pretty well. I mean, I don't know if they're going to win the national championship. I don't know if they're going to win the ACC, but I think they've got a chance with the different pieces, as long as you keep everybody bought in and, people don't get bitchy about certain things. But, I think there's a lot to like with these guys.
I agree there. And the interesting thing with the portal, with the ability to recruit as many as you need to these days, Hubert Davis has made it his team in 3 years. I mean, you mentioned RJ and Armando have been there forever, but this is Hubert Davis's team in the image that he wanted it in for the most part, and he's got it there. And you talked about some days you're going to have to score 8 points, have 4 rebounds, and be happy with that. What I don't see this team doing that they did last year at times is, yeah, there are going to be some games you score 8 points, but there can't be games that you score 8 points and shoot 3 for 15 or 3 for 20 or 4 for 24 or whatever it was. Those are the type games you lose, but you can survive guys not scoring a ton of points if they're still somewhat efficient. Jeremiah, any final thoughts? Because I saw in the private chat that we have going here that there's some stories about pickup basketball we're going to have to hear about, but talking about real basketball right now, anything sort of catch your eye in the first game? North Carolina's got 2 more relatively quote unquote easy games before it really ramps up, but anything maybe you saw that we're not talking about?
Yeah, that's going to be the key for them. Obviously, Lehigh and Riverside, getting as many guys in as you can. Some of it's going to be the lineup combinations, and some of it's just going to be just playing experience. I mean, James Okonkwo, he got in there for I think 58 seconds, just at the end of the game, just so everybody can have a chance to play. And I think even that is important. Maybe it didn't have a direct impact on the outcome of the game, but you just need guys that can touch the floor. And Hubert Davis just needs guys that he can feel like he can trust, in any point of the game. The lineup's going to tighten up, as the season goes along. I actually agree with y'all that Paxton Wojcik in the starting lineup is a good thing. I actually made a little bit of a preseason depth chart prediction thing for myself. I actually had Paxton in there. I was off by 1. I thought they might try to use Cormac as a 6th man or something like that. So I think Withers was the extra guy I had in there or something like that. But just real quick, because the Paxton thing made me think about it. Well, first of all, unrelated, he had a just nasty cut. He needed 10 I don't think we talked about that yet. He got elbowed by Baycott in the pregame, and so I guess that's the second straight year that they had a pregame.
How does that happen?
Injury.
How does that happen?
Baycott has pointy elbows.
Dummy offense. They were dummy offense.
Yeah. Man, it was insane. But just real quick to wrap it up, I remember when I was a wee little DTH reporter or whatever during one of the COVID years. It was the 2021 year, and we're asking questions on Zoom or whatever. So I got this is literally the first time I asked Roy Williams a question or whatever. He was, for whatever reason, at this point of the year, he was changing up lineup. So it was this was after one of the games where they put Caleb Beck in there and they had sat RJ or something. And I think one of the normal starters also had sat. So I remember asking him, just kind of what goes into some of those lineup rotations and things like that. And he said something that, maybe it's coach speak, whatever, but I mean, I just kind of always think about it, when I think about lineups. He was talking about, it doesn't matter, who starts games, it matters who closes games. I think that's something that's going to be a perspective for this UNC team kind of as the season progresses. Who are the guys, who are the 5 guys, and maybe it's more than 5, maybe you have 6 or 7, but who are the main guys that you can trust down the stretch of the game to make some late free throws, get some stops, whatever. So if those guys if you have more guys than just that first 5, right? Like if Cadeau is the extra guy or Withers is the extra guy, that bodes well for the team because, you really have some extra options as far as your depth.
I have a hot take to close out the basketball portion of the show here. I think we're going to see Armando Bacot get 40 at least once this season. I know that sounds crazy, but he
That's
got
hard to do.
25 last night. It didn't look too hard for him to get 25. I thought he missed a few bunnies as well. So perhaps, he gets going the right night. There's a lot more space on the floor now for all the reasons that we've talked about. So I could see it happening. And my stat to go along with that, and maybe a little bit more of a realistic stat, Armando Bacot 5 of 6 at the free throw line. That's something that I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on because he's been at UNC now for 4 seasons. This is his 5th. He's been a pretty consistent free throw shooter through his first 4 seasons, and he hasn't been an amazing free throw shooter when you look at his percentage, but he went 5 of 6 in his first game. He shot pretty well in the exhibition game as well from the free throw line. So that's the stat to keep an eye on. And, the equation to get him to 40, maybe he goes 14 of 18, gets 10 free throws as well, hits a 3-pointer. He took one of those at the end of the game last night. And, that's my hot take for the season.
I thought he had nice follow through on the 3-pointer. Like he really snapped the wrist. John, Armando's never scored 30 in a game.
That's why it's a hot take. I have to bring the heat at the end of the show here at 9:53 on the East Coast, so I got to think. My hot takes in football went so well, picking Minnesota over UNC, et cetera, et cetera. So I had to come back to the table for basketball.
I think he there's too many bunnies left on the table for him to get 40. To your point, if he goes like 18 or 16 for 18 or 16 for 19 win game and then make some free throws. That's what Hansbrough would do, right? Hansbrough would make all his foul shots, and that's how you can get to 40.
All right.
All right. Any other questions here on the chat? Let me look, make sure we didn't miss anything. Garrett, you just got John's hot take. It'll be interesting. Last night, the bench, like I said, at Slagle, it felt like it was a Roy Williams type early season game. We'll see if it sticks. I think North Carolina's got the talent to play 7, 8, 9 guys consistently. 10's a big ask, but it depends on how they play. X factor, we talked about that. Y'all say Withers, Harrison Ingram, and all that. All right, I'm gonna talk about our sponsor before I get to this segment because I'm most intrigued by this because usually I know what's coming. But Congruity, they're a new sponsor of Inside Carolina Podcast, and they're a national business, but their local presence here in North Carolina, and they are born and bred to take care of your small and mid-sized business needs. They will handle all your payroll and outsourcing while handling your people while you grow your business. They got top-of-the-line technology, customer service, all the things that are required to be an Inside Carolina sponsor, all the things that are required to be a successful business, and they are out there at congruityhr.com/Tar Heels. Go there, get your online free assessment. If you're watching this show and you've got this link, they'll set you up with a plan, see if they can help you, see if they can help your small business, and they'll look after you in only the ways that North Carolina-based companies can do. Darren and Matt, they're great at it. congruityhr.com/Tar Heels. Check them out, fill out the form, and get kick-started on your business and grow that business. And then maybe you grow your business, and maybe one day you're a sponsor of Inside Carolina Podcast, and we'll talk about you all the time. We'll throw you in the JTS Congruity mix for your local business. Love to have you. Get it done. Check them out. All right. I'm going to turn it over to John Bauman because I want some stories. I want I want some high level stories here, and I don't want any. The fish I caught was, 10 feet long. I want the real deal.
Well, Tommy, I hope I didn't oversell this because you set me up really strong here. But I have a scouting report on Jeremiah. I've gotten the opportunity
That's
to play with
good.
Adam a little bit. I've never played basketball with Tommy. I played a little bit with Ross as well, but I now have the opportunity to share a scouting report of Jeremiah. Jeremiah is an excellent basketball player. Jeremiah
Appreciate it.
is not afraid to take the last shot. The hardest shot in basketball is that
Yeah.
game winner, and Jeremiah consistently is hitting game-winning shots. Excellent guard, has all the skills you need. Great shooter. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Jeremiah. He can certainly play on the court.
All right,
I
Jeremiah. Now
appreciate
you got to talk about John here. John seems like the
Yeah.
person that calls charges in pickup games.
John does not call charges in pickup games. I would give him that, man. Nah, man. John also runs that point guard very. First of all, lefty. You know what I mean.
Okay.
So he likes to mix
Oh,
it up.
you're a lefty?
Yeah.
Yep.
He likes to go to the jersey as well when he plays. So the first time I played with him, he had the KD Nets jersey with the number 7. This past week, he had the Michael Kidd Gilchrist number 14 jersey. But yeah, John, good shooter, a good, passer. Doesn't necessarily, try to do too much with the ball. Just kind of, gets it. He's efficient with his touches. So that's a lot of his game. Good defender as well. So it's good going out there and mixing it up with him. I think that's a good crowd that runs. I haven't run with that crowd as much. I think I'm like kind of a newer addition. I think I played with y'all like 3 times in that, kind of in that group. But it's a fun group. Like, it's some people in there that have a variety of different games and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely not, like John said, like I'm not afraid to like kind of wrap the game up or whatever. Like we've been doing all this running back and forth in an untimed game. Like somebody needs to end it. So why not just do it myself if I have a good look, man. But
Tommy, you did say about charging calls. I did actually call a foul on myself. I probably am the first person to ever call this in a pickup game. I charged myself a foul for impeding the shooting landing zone of another player. I kind of stepped a little bit within his shooting area. He didn't land cleanly, and I gave him the ball back for that. So I think some people heard me make that call out on the court, and I think they laughed at me, which I probably deserved.
Wow.
Oh, yeah,
So
you gotta be first to
you
do
walked
that.
up underneath the shooter, man.
It's like the commercial. What is the commercial? Like, Coach,
Exactly.
I touched it, or
I
whatever.
touched it,
You
Coach.
know what I'm talking about? Like,
Yeah.
it's,
Mhm.
I'm trying, do the right thing or whatever it is.
Sportsmanship. Pass it on.
Hey,
there
Tommy,
you
we
go.
got to get you out there. Tommy,
Look,
you got an open invite.
I retired a long time ago once I could not do what I used to be able to do, and then all the young bucks out there try to make a name on the older guys. It used to be fun. There's some 3-on-3 days, and played with a lot of guys down here that came back after playing in college and all.
I want to hear about Adam. Adam's over here hooping. John said you play with Adam. I know Adam said his dad was a bucket back in the day.
We're about to get Adam in here, so Adam, that's where I was about to go. Is Adam?
Okay.
I've heard a few stories. I don't know how true they are. So what position are you? Like a 6'2" power forward?
I am old. I mean, I am like so old. Like, I mean, I was thinking earlier when they were talking about their game. One of the things that stuck out to me about John's game was he has a high motor. Like he can run, or at least when I've played with John, he keeps running.
These days I'm eating too much Raising Cane, so I don't know if I'm getting up and down the court.
Is it open yet? Has it opened in Chapel Hill?
I think today, right?
Yes.
Oh, it is November 7th. It opened today.
I was playing in high school in 1995. Like, I mean, think about this. I'm old as dirt. But anyway, I mean, there's no scouting report on me. I'm bald. I'm old. I can still shoot. Because I mean, I'm just old. So that hasn't left. But the days of playing. I mean, back in the day, I played against Torrey Holt in high school when he played at Eastern Guilford. That was a lifetime ago. So. But yeah, there's no scouting report over here other than you don't want me in horse. I will say that. I don't think you want me in horse.
This is
And
awesome.
if we got out and ran around, I am a willing passer too. I don't like to let the ball stick. I'm not gonna dribble the air out of the ball. Speaking of which, I was thinking about this earlier. You guys know what happens Friday night?
Oh yeah.
You go in there. How much hell is that kid going to catch in Cameron Indoor Stadium?
The number 12 Arizona
Wow.
Wildcats at the number 2 Duke Blue Devils, the second game of the season for each team. Caleb Love goes back to Cameron Indoor Stadium. I mean, damn. I would like to be there for that. I believe it's a 7 p.m. tip on ESPN2 if anyone needs it. Man, the possibilities are endless.
Oh, yeah.
I never make appointment basketball to watch Duke in anything. I will be watching that game at 7 o'clock on Friday just to see. I cannot imagine Caleb Love. If Caleb Love walks in there and puts down 25-30 and Arizona somehow wins that game, that dude will forever be the legendary beyond what he already is. It's going to be insane over there.
He will let them know.
It is going to be nuts. Absolutely. So I'm making a recommendation. Watch Arizona Duke at 7 o'clock on Friday night. It's going to be epic over there. Anything left, John? Anything left, Jeremiah? Anybody got anything?
I will be
Friday. I'm sorry, John. Also on Friday, I'm just so into the basketball mode right now. I'm sorry. Also on Friday, Lehigh, who UNC plays on Sunday, plays Penn State. Puff Johnson and DeMarco Dunn. So I mean, Lehigh is going to play 3 games in the opening week. They lost at Cornell last night against Cornell. They were at home and they lost Cornell. I don't know much about either team. But I mean, Lehigh's going to be on like a short turnaround to play UNC. It's going to be a 2 games in 3 nights, 3-day stretch for the Mountain Hawks. I don't know if that's going to be good for them. I don't think it is. But, when Caleb Love's playing in Cameron Indoor Friday night, Lehigh is going to be taking on Penn State before they come to Chapel Hill. So that's something to keep in mind.
College basketball season for sure. John, close us out of here.
Last thing for me, I'm making my return to the beat this Saturday. I'm covering for our hardworking video intern, Jalen. So I'll be back. I'll see Jeremiah, Adam. I'll see all you guys at the game on Saturday night. I'll be back on the sidelines where I was during my internship for 2 years with Inside Carolina.
That's awesome.
Nice, man.
No retirement.
You can check out, but you can never leave Inside Carolina. And John Bauman live on sidelines at Duke, North Carolina. And are you doing Lehigh game too?
No, but I think we're doing the post game for Lehigh, Tommy. So we'll have to chat about that another time.
Okay. Well, yep, folks, check out all the content we got going on at Inside Carolina before we get out of here tonight. We've got a special Coast to Coast comes out tomorrow. It was a rotation, was a noon dish, but we're going to divert that to Coast because it is basketball season. Not a ton going on in recruiting. Also, check out the Game Plan Thursday Night Live with Jason, Greg, and myself, and then Inside Carolina Live in the Bowls lot, 5 to 7 in the dark. Bring your flashlights and your lanterns and your heaters probably. We will need it. And also post-game or the day after Sunday morning, and then post-game Lehigh. That game's at 2 o'clock on Sunday? So post-game 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon. Stay tuned for all of Adam and Jeremiah's hard work as they cover the beat, and stay tuned for everything at InsideCarolina.com. Shout out JTS. Shout out Congruity. Thanks, everybody.